Good morning and welcome to the January 16, 2020 business meeting. With that, I'd ask the County Administrator, Gary Schmidt, to please take the roll.
Yes, Chair. First, our staff support today is Stephen Madcore, County Counsel, Kevin Moss, Clerk to the Board. Roll call, Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here, please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first, I'd like to announce that the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority for the next item. With that, I'd also like to introduce our Housing Authority Commissioner, Paul Reynolds.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And Gary, what's up?
Actually, Kevin will read the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. On today's Housing Authority consent agenda, we have approval of a personal services contract with Carlton Hart Architecture for architecture and engineering services at 1800 Webster Road in Gladstone.
Do any commissioners wish to remove this item from the consent agenda? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
It's moved and second that we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda. Any further discussion? With that, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
With that, I'll announce that the board will adjourn as the Housing Authority Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And up first is citizen communication.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First up, we have Charles Ormsby and Greg Cianello.
Welcome, Charles. And Greg, you can come up to the dais.
Get him, because we have the...
Is there no Greg here?
I am.
Oh, you can come up.
Oh, okay. Two seats.
Go ahead, Charles.
Good morning. My name is Charles Ormsby. I go by the nickname Skip. I'm co-chair of the Birds Hill CPAONA. We're on the northeast corner of northeast quadrant of Lake Oswego, which is essentially the Union Pacific Railroad Bridge at Willamette River Mile 20 on the west bank. I'm here on behalf of myself and my need as a advocate for transit-dependent riders, advocate for mobility of handicapped individuals. I'm going to be in contact with those groups evolving. I've got a call into the FTA. They're not responding yet. Problem I have shortly, Skip is here, Skip will be back. I want to see, primary thing that drove me was the notice on your website about the new courthouse to the northwest from this chair I'm sitting in. It is not handicap accessible by mobility standards. You may be able to get from bus stops to the flags over there, but good luck getting elsewhere in the county. Good luck getting from this chair where I'm sitting to the rotunda of the state capitol. Very good luck. Things need to be defined. I'm basically aligning terms, places, and whatnot. You need to take a look at Google Map Plus codes to get that sort of thing. I will be giving you a challenge. I'm using the term Margaret's Chair Challenge, and I'll just quickly demonstrate it within about 30 seconds. Essentially, this is what's called a Beasy board. We'll be asking elected officials, members of committees to get between a chair and a wheelchair. It's the first 27 inches is difficult. God help you on some of the other links that you have to go through. So that's this challenge will be issued probably in the next month or so in writing. I still am working on nomenclature, what I want. I need maps. Paul saw me at Metro on Monday night. I was there at MTAC yesterday. I'm after quadrangle maps to delineate the entire 3 urban areas in Oregon and Southwest Washington, all the way from the Cowlitz River to the Santiam River in south of Salem. I need that because how do you tell where somebody is? And God help you trying to get between, as I said, this facility and the state capitol. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Just real quick, Skip, I appreciate you showing up at some of these meetings. Not that I want to, further engage a lot of dialogue because of the limited time we have here today, but I just want to tell my colleagues every day, I just left JPAC, so I just arrived here just moments ago, and I am still, the same problem we're facing, and that is that all of these needs for all these different populations, those that are disabled, those that are.
ClackCo's apparently
Right.
been.
We always get, we continually do not get the investments.
All right, great.
We just don't get the investments. And meanwhile, they're just planning these grandiose expenditures and so forth, and at the sacrifice of of everyone else in the region other than seems to be that downtown.
You're preaching to the choir here. And Highway 43 is a problem child. It's tier 2, and you know that nomenclature, what that means. And God help you if we want to get a widened Highway 43 between Lake Oswego and the Selwood Bridge. Don't. Just don't.
Thank you. Greg?
Good morning. My name is Greg Cianello. I am a 48-year resident of Judd Road and Eagle Creek. There is a non-conforming use application number 20432-19 for an extension of a shooting range on our neighborhood, which is no place to have for many reasons, safety being the main concern, noise, and some other issues. Our road is not built for this type of thing. I think Ken has been down at our CPO meeting. At any rate, we have been in contact with Glenn Hamburg, the planner. We have, my wife and I have issued a letter in detail, and there are other residents that are doing so, and we are in action to repute this situation, which is wrong from every aspect once you get into looking at the detail of it all. If somebody would like me to leave, this is a mailer going out, what really puts in perspective of what's happening. If this can be dropped off here, that's fine. If somebody needs, who would I give this to?
Kevin?
Okay. There's both sides here you can look at the best time for. But I'm basically just here to make my presence known, have a face with the letters and action that will be taken. There will be more people coming to these meetings in the future. I appreciate the opportunity to come here this morning.
Do you know if it's scheduled for a hearing or is it a decision?
I'm not sure. It's been backed up once, maybe twice. I think possibly March is what I heard.
All right, let's look at it and see what.
Yes.
Anyway, I really appreciate the time to be able to speak.
All right.
Yeah, happy to look into it. Are you related to a Steve?
That is my son.
Okay, okay.
And I know he's been active in some other issues. You know, the whole thing about this and being a resident 48 years, you realize how sometimes it's real important to come forth and see that the right thing is done. And
Tell him I
guess
said
that's
hello.
why I'm here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'll look into your situation.
Thank you very
I'll
much,
bring it to my
Paul.
attention. Thanks.
Les?
Well, good morning, I think. I hope the gentleman feels good about how he was treated. And I hope you respond, and I appreciate Commissioner Savas responding to him. And hopefully there'll be some responses to what I have to say and ask today. For those of you at home and those of you that have any question in your mind as to why I'm here, it's because last November I found out that our chair, who had been found guilty, or should I say, had admitted to an ethics violation, which is in a way splitting hairs, but any way you look at it, he had some conduct that was totally inappropriate. And it was defended on Tuesday in the audio. I encourage folks to listen to the audio of Tuesday, January 7th policy session where a vote was taken. Martha was deeply concerned. Paul voted against the proposal, and Commissioners Fisher and Humberson gleefully moved forward. We heard that it was an emotional thing, and we all have people we care about, and sometimes we do things. Sometimes we overreact or say something we shouldn't have. And that's true, Commissioner Humberson. But that's really not germane to this situation, given that we've got an elected chair with a history that's very troubling. And this is just one more example. And I'm not going to belabor everything, but I do have some questions. First of all, I would like to hear read into the record before the meeting is adjourned the document or authorization that was provided to allow Chair Bernard to have his funds covered, legal funds covered, and was a limit on that. Back in 2012, in a similar situation that he was involved in, a $5,000 initial limit was authorized. In this case, it looks like we kind of just did a friendly backdoor deal. And ironically, I want to conclude with something. That 2012 situation seems so long ago, but it involved the Milwaukee Light Rail line and his failure to recuse himself. He never did recuse himself in that entire process. In fact, he was there when the $25 million was voted on, and at the end of the meeting, rather than vote, he abstained. And thinking back, I've had a number of people, and I'll wrap up here real quickly. I've had a number of people asking me about that because, of course, Chair Bernard is running for election. There's a 5-story building, mixed use, on the property that he used to own, or owns. I believe it's been sold. And in April of 2015, I came here with a copy of almost $300,000 in compensation that he received and explained away all of his excuses. So I encourage all of you, please, anyone at home, anyone watching that has any question about his integrity, go to the BCC website. Real easy to find the archive videos, especially the elected officials that weren't here in April of 2015. I encourage you to watch the April 16th video and watch my 3 minutes. And you'll understand that this is an ongoing situation, and it's time for some folks to stop enabling and making excuses for it, especially given that we just spent 20 grand and I don't know how much staff time at a time when how could we also get an answer as to how many millions were upside down with the budget? And how come every time Commissioner Savas brings that up, he gets shut down or ignored? I speak on behalf of a lot of people right now, and I want everyone to know that that man up there is unelectable. It's very clear. Thank you.
Paul.
Yeah, I want to just apologize again to my colleagues that on Tuesday I had somewhat of a family emergency I had to attend to, so I had to leave. And I kind of brought up that I had some things I wanted to discuss on Tuesday. I wasn't able to, and not going to do that here today completely, but Les did bring up something I did want to bring up, and that is that since January 7th or that Tuesday meeting and over the weekend, not only, some people are aware that I did not support that on Tuesday, and some people are not. Some people just read the headline and it said Board of County Commissioners approve X expense, for the legal fees. So it's been, you know, it's not a, it's been very difficult. My weekend was consumed by explaining, trying to folks what happened, and a lot of questions like Les is pointing to. But all to say that I'm asking staff, I'm asking staff to somehow put on the website. I raised this issue before, that under issues, we don't seem to have the material like we do in work sessions. And so it's not as transparent as it ought to be. And I think that those documents that were, you know, the whole core of this, these questions, they're reasonable questions, and the material should be on the website. And it's not, because it wasn't a work session like it was in the past. There's, you know, again, we didn't do things the last time like we did them this time. And I raised that last week as well. But I don't want to exploit this opportunity, and I'm not going to. I think at the very minimum, what Les did raise here today that's relevant is getting that information on the website. I can't answer those questions. It's not there, and it should be there.
Okay. Martha, were you going to?
Yeah, I'm just going to say a few things, because this is a dilemma. It's a big dilemma, and we faced this dilemma before, and we have not been consistent. And I'm looking at Tootie out there. We did something very different when we had a similar situation. Well, it's different but similar, but what happens is, as commissioners, it is a risk that we have to take. And I remember that under that scenario, we had an employee complaint. The employee dropped the complaint for, I think, 6 months of severance pay, which was like $43,000. Both Commissioner Ludlow and Commissioner Smith paid for their own lawyer bills ahead of time. And everything was on the website. Okay, that's true. And when we came here, I'm always upset when we get into this kind of a dilemma. I don't know. I've never had to have a lawyer. I mean, I don't know. So I always am troubled by this. On the other hand, you don't want to throw people under the bus if you want to be a kind and considerate person, and that's what makes it difficult. But with Commissioner Ludlow and Commissioner Smith, we did agree to pay $5,000 of their lawyers' fees. It did not cover the entire amount. It was more of a compromise to attempt to be good to your colleagues, because things happen, and we're human, and we make mistakes, and to acknowledge that. But also, we have to have some accountability for when things happen that way. So I'm going to suggest very strongly, and I've asked Commissioner Savis about this and talked to him, and Commissioner Humbertson and other folks, is that what I think we need to do is we need to clarify the policy of how we work this. I took the time to relook at the policy, and I apologize to the public. I should have probably done more of this ahead of time rather than now. But the policy itself was written in 2006. And that's just, we haven't looked at it in 14 years. And in a litigious society where we all want to sue each other, okay, we need to have some clarity and some significant structure on how we handle anything like this in the past and in the future. I actually don't think it was, in one way, to me, it's a fairness issue, too. If we didn't compensate our other commissioners totally, we have to be consistent. It's a lack of consistency. So I'm going to strongly suggest that we look at the policy. I think we need to revamp it. It's from 2006. I think we have to discuss things like a cap. I think we have to discuss things how, you know, with more clarity, with more structure. I'm not sure how to go about that yet, but I was hopeful, Commissioner Savis, you would help with that. And I'm truly not trying to throw anybody under the bus, I'll be honest. I think it's one of my big weaknesses is I'm too nice for my own good a lot of times. And I don't like putting fellow commissioners in any bad spot at all, really. But we have to be consistent. We have to be fair. If it was, that's why I can't. I think we need to revisit this in a way and be consistent, because other commissioners we want to reimburse because we don't want people to be targeted, but other commissioners, you know, what we've done in the past, we have to be consistent in the future, and that consistency needs to be codified in a policy. So we don't get into these kinds of murky gray areas ever again. Although I will look at our lawyer here and say, it's always gray areas, isn't it? Okay, so that's, and our other fellow lawyer here. So that is my strong suggestion, because I don't feel like I treated past commissioners fairly in this case. If we're going to cover everything completely, we should have a policy about that, and if we're not, we're not. You know, it's hard enough to do this job without these kinds of things hanging over our head. It's distracting, and it takes away from the work we're trying to do for the county. So colleagues, I hope you'll support me and that we need to look at this policy.
Yeah. We
Very
already-
strongly. I know, but
We
I mean,
addressed it on
but
Tuesday, and we were
Right.
all in favor, except Commissioner Savas wasn't in attendance. So.
yes. So, but I also want to apologize to Commissioner Smith. We did not compensate you to the full amount when you had lawyer bills as a commissioner. And I ran that meeting. So I don't think I've been fair or just. And that's kind of part of my personal issue. And I want to see that get rectified. Thank you.
Yeah, just briefly, I want to just thank Commissioner Schrader. Staff, when I came in yesterday, said you need to listen to the tape for the meeting I missed on this last Tuesday, and I did. And so I think you did a great job, and I appreciate a number of the comments. And I stated here last week, I approve of the policy as far as the principle, the written policy, not the one that we seem to make or break, but the policy. And the purpose of the policy for those out there is that in the event, due to our position, that there's a frivolous claim made against us, that we have the coverage to defend ourselves. But if we are found guilty, then or found that we're in violation of, then the policy should apply, and we can talk about caps and other things. So that's what the policy is written, and I concur and want to revisit that policy, because number one, it needs clarity.
Yeah,
And there's a piece of it that's always been missing, which goes back to 2011 and 2012, when I needed legal counsel, not because of a claim against me, not because I generated something, but because of a conflict, potential conflict of interest, not of mine, but perhaps of where, well, it's complicated, so I won't go there. But I do want to say that I was a little bit alarmed, actually, by one of the comments on this last Tuesday, listening to the tape, and I want to address that. And not now, but I just want to address that. I kind of mentioned last Tuesday when we discussed this in my closing comments about we need to be shown as leaders. We need to demonstrate to our staff and to the public that we are meeting our own goals and our own ethic codes and our own rules that we set forth. And if we're in violation of those, we don't set good examples. So I think that while I heard things about trust or culture of trust, I think that the biggest issue really ought to be is that you do that by leading by example. And I think primarily when I read the whistleblower policy, which came up in this, the whistleblower policy, what comes first is our staff doing the right thing. And if they feel that they need to go and they need to report something, they should not be impeded. They need to do that. And otherwise, if they don't, they are subjecting themselves to liabilities of their own. And that shouldn't be the case. So in many cases, guidance was given. I heard, Jim, I would appreciate you made some apologies, and you made, I appreciate that. That's good. But there was guidance given. I just want to say the guidance was based, our legal counsel gave guidance through this 2-year venture. You had guidance that was in writing. I provided guidance and suggestions and advice. And so all those things were in place. But anyhow, I'll stop there and say I will support that effort to revisit that policy, and also I want to also revisit in detail the whistleblower policy, because there are a number of elements of whistleblowing through this whole thing that have not been part of the record. And to my earlier comment, it needs to be part of the record. I can't answer all those questions. It shouldn't be a burden upon us and the public to be approached at a grocery store or a restaurant and have to explain this. It's very difficult.
Yeah, this is one of the hardest parts of this job, and I don't ever really want to go through this piece of it again. And I think we would be absolutely behoove us for the future to make sure there's no wiggle, we've just got to clarify this, yeah. And anyway, I'm ready to get back to the business of the county.
All right, I did mention and I did comment that, I apologize for my emotional reaction and the mistake I made of sending one email specifically and not identifying the potential conflict in that one email. I did ask ahead of time. I was so sure of it that I did say that I was innocent, that I did say that I would pay should I be found guilty. But the fact that there were literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of emails and hundreds of certainly hours looking through those emails to find the very last one I sent. It was a fishing expedition. I made a mistake. I sent an email. I agree that I made a mistake. The difference between what happened before and what happened recently is I did not do anything purposely to an employee that required $43,775,000 in compensation. I did not mistreat an employee that caused that, and
Fair.
that's a very different. And I do apologize.
Please don't. Please, let's not go there. Could we please not go there? This is difficult enough, and I do not want to throw folks under the bus. It's just not my nature. Okay, let's just move on. Jim, I appreciate you. Let's move on with the meeting. Let's just move on now.
Got no problem with that.
Okay.
All right, with that, we'll move on to a public hearing. We have a approval of a, go ahead, Gary.
Yes, with this public hearing is approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reduction for fiscal year 2019-2020. Haley Fish, Deputy Finance Director, will present.
My hands are full. For the record, I'm Haley Fish, Deputy Director of Finance. Today I'm here to ask for your approval of changes of 10% or greater to the various funds as requested by our departments to maintain compliance with Oregon local budget law. For the most part, this is about truing up the beginning balances in our current year budget, as these were based on projections done in early spring. If you know, we are currently going into the budget cycle, and for the current year, these are due February 22nd. So we're making an estimate way before the actuals come through. Another way of saying this is that the unspent dollars at the end of June 30th are the opening balances for July 1st. Now that the books for the fiscal year 18-19 are in the final stages of the audit process, we know exactly how many dollars should be rolled over from the old year into the current year. We no longer need to rely on those projections that we did in the spring. So a majority of these adjustments are to true up these projections to actuals. Today, we are recognizing those differences and also differences in other funding sources, such as grants, charges for services, interfund transfers, and interfund transfers. Overall, this supplemental will increase resources and corresponding requirements by $32,436,097, of which approximately 34%, or approximately $11 million, is being allocated to contingency and reserves, and another 25%, approximately $8 million, is allocated to special payments, primarily related to the C-800 pass-through reimbursement requests realized being less than expected. This accounts for approximately 59% of the total adjustments being made today. The required public notice for these changes was published in the Lake Oswego Review on January 9th. I will now read through the exhibit allocations for the record. Please bear with me as it's a long list. So in total, the recommendation for this supplemental of greater than 10% is increasing fund balance $24,390,913. We are recognizing $1,278,303 of federal operating grants. We are recognizing an additional $100,555 of state operating grants, $272,650 of local government and other agency funds, $145,141 of miscellaneous revenue, $179,360 of other financing resources, and recognizing additional interfund transfers of $5,938,693. In the general fund, we are recognizing $11,307,211 of fund balance from last year. An additional $30,492 of charges for services, an additional $43,645 of miscellaneous revenue, and $4,482,155 of interfund transfers. Those are being appropriated to $234,121 is being appropriated to public and government affairs for professional services and contract work. We are allocating $1,039,799 to interfund transfers. The special payments I previously mentioned are $8,092,075, and we are moving $6,497,508 to contingency. Would you like me to stop after each fund for questions or read through the entire document before we do questions?
I think you could probably just read through the funds.
Okay. Well, then settle in. So in the county school fund, we are
I
recognizing.
want to stop you a second. Do we really have to read through all these?
You guys let me know. It has been past history that we have read it for the record. I do not need to read it if you guys are happy with the exhibit and would like me to open up for questions.
What do you want to do?
Read it for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
In the county school fund, we are recognizing we are estimating $440,000 of federal operating grants and $5,000 of miscellaneous revenue due to interest, and allocating those to special payments. These funds come from timber reserve money that are passed through the federal government to us, and we are required to pass those through to the schools. In the library fund, or in the law library fund, we are recognizing a reduction in beginning fund balance of $16,749, and we are recognizing $96,496 of miscellaneous revenue, which the net amount is being allocated to public safety and protection for book purchases. The Library Service Fund is recognizing an additional $817,916 and appropriating $472,041 for program costs and increasing reserves $345,875. In the Parks Fund, we are recognizing an additional $333,712 and appropriating it to contingency. We are recognizing $786,000 of additional fund balance, $786,673 of additional fund balance in the Community Corrections Fund, appropriating $321,097 to align program cost to public safety and protection, and the remaining balance of $465,576 to contingency. In the Justice Court Fund, we are recognizing $958,991 and appropriating it to an interfund transfer to the general fund. In the Transportation System Development Charge Fund, we are recognizing an additional fund balance of $1,453,984 and appropriating $100,000 to Public Ways and Facilities, and the remaining balance of $1,353,984 to reserves. In the Health, Housing, and Human Administration Fund, we are recognizing an additional fund balance of $1,024,141 and an additional interfund transfers of $281,000, appropriating $26,650 to programs and $1,278,491 to contingency. In the Children, Families, and Community Connection Fund, we are recognizing $792,586 of additional fund balance, $838,303 of additional federal operating grants, $155,000 of state operating grants, $272,650 of local government agency revenue, $99,990 of charges for services, and $33,000 of interfund transfers. We are reducing Health and Human Resources appropriations by $6,063, recognizing an interfund transfer of $151 to the Health, Housing, and Human Administrations Fund, and recognizing $2,46,622 of special payments. In the Dog Services Fund, we are recognizing $333,381 of fund balance and allocating it to reserves. In the Forest Management Fund, we are recognizing $668,000 of fund balance, $179,360 of other fund financing services, appropriating $46,160 to culture, education, and recreation, $361,457 to reserve, and $68,411 to contingency. The Juvenile Fund is recognizing an additional $1,817,184 of fund balance, reducing state operating grants by $54,445, and recognizing a $1,142,538 interfund transfer from the general fund, and reducing their expenses by $590,032. This is represented by reducing their FTE by 7 of vacant positions. And they are transferring the balance of their fund, which is $3,495,309 to the general fund. So I'm going to actually read the description there because this is a little bit different. So the Juvenile Fund is recognizing additional fund balance and budgeting an interfund transfer of its total fund balance to the general fund. This fund is also reducing 7 vacant FTE and operational expense and budgeting an interfund transfer from the general fund for operating support. The Local Improvement District Construction Fund is reducing their fund balance $1,574 and reducing interfund transfers accordingly. The Telecommunications Services Fund is recognizing $828,978 in additional fund balance and increasing capital for the closed circuit TV storage and camera replacement scheduled. The Technology Services Fund is increasing fund balance $3,657,811 and recognizing and budgeting for the completion of projects and anticipated increased costs for temporary employees. With that, I will finish my staff report for the public hearing.
All right, any questions? Ken, and then Sonia?
I just wanted to comment that given the fact that we can expect some pay changes once the equal pay survey has been done, and the housing costs that we are expecting as we go forward in dealing with homelessness and low-income housing issues, I was particularly pleased to see the increases in reserves and in contingencies. When you look at it further out, and can probably expect an economic downturn in the not-too-distant future, I really do appreciate the fact that you're building up those contingency and reserves in some of our funds. Appreciate the work that you've done on this. Thank you.
Sonia?
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of reading that you did. And I'm just curious, as I was looking through the staff materials and trying to follow along with what you were saying, I recognize that you were reading from somewhere different than what we have in our staff report.
I was reading from the Exhibit A so that you could have the actual figures. The staff report doesn't list the dollar figures in it, but it has the same narrative.
And I was looking at Exhibit A also, but I didn't see that they were consistent in what you were reading and what I was looking at in Exhibit A. So I'm just curious where online this information that you read would be for.
It is in the packet. Potentially, were you looking at Exhibit A for the less than
Well, that's all. Well,
supplemental?
maybe I don't have a full packet. That's all I have is the less than.
Okay, so there's a greater than, and that's what the public hearing is on. The less than is on the consent agenda. So I did not read through that.
Okay, so then my question is just for.
They're both in the packet for the meeting today, online.
Okay, so they're online. I just wanted to make sure I understood where, since it wasn't.
They are both in the packet for the meeting today.
So
One
thank you
in
for
the-
reading it all for the public record. I appreciate that.
Paul?
Yeah, Haley, in general, I know we do this every year, and I imagine that as we tighten our budgets and we have less carryover, less contingency, that there'll be even more of this, right? Perhaps, or exceedances, or, it seems to me as we compress that a little bit, it's more likely that we will, from time to time, you will see those numbers of, over the 10%, less than 10%, as tighter we get, because there'll be just less contingency in each of those funds.
There's less contingency. We do hope that over time, our differences between budget and actuals that gap will get narrower, and so these supplementals should be less. Because mostly what you're seeing here, like I said at the beginning, is that we estimated what you would have in carryover, and in most of these cases, it turned out positive. We had more money to carry over, which is either that we had revenue that came in that was unexpected, and or more likely that some of the work we planned to do in last year didn't get done, and so it's being done in this year. However, as you noted, we have encouraged departments to be moving money to the contingency, knowing that we will be tighter as we go forward, which is different than what we've done in the past. In the past, many times it would just be appropriated back into the programs for the current year, which then potentially could increase the differences at the end of that year. So we're hoping to reduce that gap over time as we're able to get better estimates.
Yeah, and we understand the purpose of this exercise we go through, and I just looking to the administrator and or yourself to answer the question. None of these jump out as red flags, or otherwise you would have brought those to our attention much earlier than this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is simply budget reconciliation. We come before you at least quarterly with supplemental budgets.
And I know that the key word here is reconciliation, and I know that as we're making some changes, that we'll be able to reconcile a number of numbers. And I've asked other departments to help with that in an indirect way to kind of assess or confirm where we are, our financial picture. And I know that's still to come, that's still being generated. But, the more certainty we have in the coming months and weeks, the better off we are. Yeah.
Yes.
Just real quick, and Haley, I did want to clarify that I did find it in my packet. So I was actually looking in the wrong place. Thank you for directing me there. I appreciate it very much.
No problem.
All right, so we need a motion.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We need to open and close the public hearing.
Oh, that's right. We need to open the public hearing, ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolution for a Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reduction for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve a resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reduction for fiscal year 2019-2020. I think there's a couple of things that we saw in here that are important. One is that we're increasing our reserves, but, you know, I mean, as a small business owner, you pretty much have to do this, balance your accounts. But one important thing that I think we're looking at is staffing levels. You know, we've for years budgeted a certain number of staff to a certain department and expense that. And when you do that, you expense all those other costs such as internet or computers, or you're estimating all those, and that can become a greater burden to a department. So when you eliminate those positions, you can reduce the costs and get more, I think, more of a more exact or a better picture of that department, and that we're doing. So with that, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much, Haley. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and I'd ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On today's consent agenda, under Health, Housing, and Human Services, we have approval of agreement number 18627 with Ride Connection, Inc. to provide funding for rides provided by volunteer drivers under the Vets Drive Vets program, and approval of a revenue contract amendment for professional services with Oregon State University for Strengthening Families program. Under our Department of Transportation Development, approval of a contract with Oregon Department of Transportation, Transportation Safety Division for the purposes of the ODOT TSD Safe Communities Grant Renewal, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Canby for traffic signal maintenance and transportation engineering services. Under our Finance Department, approval of a resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget less than 10% and transfers for fiscal year 2019-2020. Under elected officials, approval of Clackamas County investment policy from our Treasurer's Office, and disaster management, approval of a memorandum of agreement between Clackamas County and the Colton School District for emergency disaster-related use of Colton schools, and that concludes today's consent agenda.
Okay, do any commissioners wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. County Administrator updates.
Yes, Commissioners, I always like to share with you some good news that our county staff does here at Clackamas County, and today is no exception. First, back in September, a county resident named Vanessa wrote to Commissioner Savas asking what is the process to lower the speed limit of a road in Clackamas County, which was Hill Road in the Oak Grove area. Quickly, the request was sent to our Department of Transportation and Development, who communicated with Vanessa that Clackamas County had already put in a speed limit lowering request for that road with the state of Oregon. And then quickly, the state of Oregon accomplished that request. And then Vanessa wrote back to the county saying, I wanted to say thank you very much for all the help to get Southeast Hill Road changed to 30 miles per hour. We saw the new road signs posted last week. Our family feels much safer knowing that some people may drive slower. We also heard and felt empowered knowing that our county listened to our request and did something about it. So thank you to Vanessa for the good words, and to Commissioner Savas for raising the request, and to our transportation staff for making it happen. Next, Water Environment Services awarded the first Michael Trent Water and Environmental Technology Endowed Scholarship Award to a Clackamas Community College student named Miranda Foster. She is the first recipient of this scholarship, which is awarded to a second-year student of the Water and Environmental Technology program at Clackamas Community College. Michael was a Clackamas Community College alum and was an employee of West for 25 years. He was a passionate advocate for stewardship of natural resources. He unfortunately passed away in 2017, and his widow, Rosemary, was on hand to present this scholarship to students to help carry on Michael's important work. The county's Opioid Awareness and Education Subcommittee on naloxone, I'm saying that incorrectly, which is made up of county staff and outside partners, hosted a successful community workshop last week called Not Just Naloxone, and saw more than 50 people attend. Expert speakers discussed the impacts of the opioid crisis in our community and explained how our efforts to reduce opioid injuries and how to administer an overdose antidote. Thank you to the overwhelming interest. A second workshop will be held later here in the wintertime. So thanks to our committee and our staff from Health, Housing, Human Services, and the Sheriff's Office for conducting this event. Finally, there was a recent incident on Childs and Stafford Road here in our county, and there was a lot of concern and some misinformation that was being spread on social media, particularly next door. And our staff, Mike Besner, responded to an inquiry from a Stafford Hamlet member asking, can the county please clarify what's going on? And Mike responded on a weekend. And Ellen Roglin also so Mike Besner from Transportation and Development, Ellen Roglin in Public and Government Affairs, both worked on the weekend to get information posted on social media clarifying what the situation was. So all this is just to say of the fine work our county staff does here at Clackamas County every day, and I thank them for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, coming back from the holidays has been a busy time. We all attended the legislative breakfast with our legislative contingent in Clackamas County. I think that was profitable for us as a county, working together with our legislators. Two of the issues that we've, among others, I'll talk about that we will be supporting at the state legislature. Funding for I-205 is one of those, and more. And I'd say closer to home a little bit is community corrections funding replacement. The cost in community corrections is about $12.06 a day allocated. Unfortunately, those costs have raised up to about $14.24 a day. I compare that to what the cost would be in state prison, which is about $115 a day. So the taxpayer gets a much better bang for the buck with the community corrections program we have right here in Clackamas County, and it has a lower recidivism rate. So we're aggressively going after those funds to be replaced, and there's a $25 million ask on that. And the AOC the AOC Public Safety Committee is going after that also. There's pretty much universal agreement throughout the state that those funds need to be replaced. I attended our Tourism Development Council meetings, had a dinner at a Slavic Heritage Festival. That's one of the largest communities of immigrants in our area. Attended the State of the College address by Dr. Tim Cook. I'll just share one major thing. We are one of the top community colleges in the nation in services to vets. And this is not the first time we've been recognized for that. There was quite a number of other remarkable accomplishments that have occurred at that school. I would encourage people to go online and check that out. The bond money that was passed in order to increase their services and facilities is being very responsibly spent. I attended the opening of the Leading Library, beautiful new building. The community seems to be very proud of it. There must have been several hundred people there. And that building is probably about as close to net zero in terms of its energy consumption as they were able to get. Really quite an accomplishment. We attended the AMR Awards banquet. The ambulance service this year was happy to state that there were no deaths in their staffing this year. It's one of the few years they've not had somebody die on the job. At AOC, I attended the Veterans Caucus, the Public Safety Caucus, and the Health Caucus, and we are aggressively pursuing a number of initiatives that I won't go into here, but they're essentially funding initiatives for mental health, public safety, and veterans' health at the state legislature. And then attended the French Prairie Forum last night, where discussions were held around the tourism in the French Prairie and Willamette Valley areas, and some of the things that are going on with that, and some of the concerns about the wake boating that's going on in the river and the damages ecologically that's doing. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, except, of course, it's time to go to the dogs. What's the name of the biggest planet in our solar system? Also, what is the name of this fella with an extra large personality? Jupiter. Jupiter, or Jupy for short, is a young fellow of only 10 months old who will need a forever person that is 100% dedicated to his success, and that success will involve training. He is eager to learn and is ready to find someone who understands the importance of taking him to training classes so that the skills he learns will be positively impacting his life as well as his persons for years to come. Jupiter would love a yard to romp around in, someone to take him on walks and adventures. He loves his puzzle feeders, so mental enrichment will be a benefit to his life. He's a big boy with a lot of energy, so keep that in mind when meeting him. Ask us for tips while you are here to help him practice his calm behaviors. Hint, string cheese as a reward is amazing to him. So are you dedicated to your dog's success? Active, ready to learn along with this fellow to help him be the best boy he can be? Come on in and meet Jupiter today. We will provide the string cheese and he will provide the love. For more information about Jupiter or any other adoptable dogs, please contact Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or www.clackamas.us/dogs. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Yes, I want to talk about a few things here. One of the key things that happened this week is that the Association of Oregon Counties has hired a new executive director. Her name is Gina Furman-Nichols, and she is the first woman, I think, in my knowledge of the organization for all the years I've been there. She has been our first woman executive director. So I'm glad that that part of that work is done. The organization is going into the 2020 year stronger and better than before. I'm officially the past president, thank goodness. I'm glad that's off my plate. And I look forward to continue to being on the executive team to keep strengthening the organization for all counties in our state, all 36. So that's a big thing. And colleagues, I'm glad that's over. The other piece of this that I wanted to mention was I had an opportunity to meet with Annette Matson yesterday at Gustav's and with the new Mount Hood Community College president. And we actually have talked about getting together with all three of our presidents. I didn't realize that actually Mount Hood has a huge portion of our constituencies that actually are under the umbrella of Mount Hood. So that was something that I hadn't realized, and they serve a few thousand, significant number of folks that are our students. Now, we're kind of close to Clackamas across the way, so we talk about Clackamas all the time as well. But the other piece of it is that Portland Community College also serves our population in the Lake Oswego area. So we talked a little bit about getting all three of the community college presidents together to pull things together and talk a little bit about how we can help them out with funding down in the state legislature. They were not a part of that K-12. It was a K-12 education package. They were not a part of that. So they are hopeful that they can continue to offer that higher education service that we need to have. So that was kind of a good meeting. The other piece of this, well, let me just move on to, let's see, what do I have up first? How about the word of the week, arts and culture? Gallivant, it's a verb, to travel, roam, or move about for pleasure. Dated, to go about usually ostensibly or indiscreetly with members of the opposite sex. Oh, my stars. Back in the 14th century, a young man of fashion, or a ladies' man, was called a gallant. By the late 1600s, gallant was being used as a verb to describe the process a paramour used to win a lady's heart. To gallant became a synonym of to court. Etymologists, not entomologists, etymologists, okay, think that the spelling of the verb gallant was altered to create gallivant. Nowadays, however, gallivant is more likely to describe wandering than romancing. Famous quote, "I would that I were an old beggar, rolling a blind pearl eye, for he cannot see my lady go gallivanting by," from Yeats, William Butler Yeats. All right, let's move to arts and culture in the county. All right, Chapel Theater Collective presents Blind, Friday and Saturday, January 17th and 18th, 7:30 p.m. Sunday, January 19th, 2 p.m. Chapel Theater, Milwaukee. Part of Fertile Ground 2020, a citywide festival of new works. Don't miss the world premiere production of Bonnie Ratner's Blind. Okay, second, the Sandy Hoodlin Library Photography Group presents 24 Hours in Welches. Saturday, January 18th, 1 p.m., Hoodlin Library, Welches. Images from the photography group, a 2020 AEP artist group, project 24 Hours in Welches will be on display. There will be a slideshow of the images, and the book will be on display as well. clackamasartsalliance.org. Thanks. Okay.
Great, Sonia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to be exiting out of this meeting right away because I have to get to a Here Together meeting across town in Beaverton. But before I go, I wanted to ask that a video be shown that talks about some of the efforts of Here Together. This video was posted on their website on December 18th. This effort is a collaboration of business leaders, philanthropists, elected officials, and citizen nonprofit groups of looking at how do we support our most vulnerable folks in the region, which are people, older folks, people with disabilities, and people that are really struggling with housing support services. So with that, I'm going to give this video, and then I'm going to race on out of here because I got to get to my next meeting. So thank you very much. It's a 2-minute video, so thanks.
Nobody teaches you how to be homeless. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do for shelter? What are you going to do for water? What are you going to do for food?
Nobody chooses to live like that. Nobody chooses to abandon every humanly thing that they know. I mean, people that are sleeping outside, if you see them, they're all huddled together trying to create some sense of community within themselves. Have you noticed that?
When you're living in a world where you're not existing, feeling as if the world is against you, it's so demoralizing.
Not being able to provide for yourself or for your children, that pride, it's smashed down. There's nothing. You're just existing. You're constantly like, I just need to do this to survive to the next day or to the next place that I'm getting to.
When I was a kid, a person that was dirty with a sleeping bag was homeless, but you got people that can be well dressed, they can be well kept, and you won't even know that they were homeless unless they tell you.
And I was like, well, I'll just sleep outside just tonight. But one night turned into 2. And then it became walking the streets.
I would have to look around my house and be like, okay, what can I keep and what is going to go to the Goodwill because I can't afford a storage unit.
I was living in hotels. I was couch surfing at friends' house, and at the time, these people were not safe people.
We just need more people with love that understand that there is a need. We can do it together. It's not a singular problem. It's a city problem.
I am a housing specialist for Portland Homeless Family Solutions.
I help people get into mental health and alcohol and drug treatment.
I currently am a state certified mentor. I'm there to build trust so that they can work with me and ask for help.
When somebody reaches out for help, I want to be there. I want to be a wealth of resources for that person, because sometimes you never know what kind of help somebody's going to need.
Thanks, I thought Sonia was going to be in that video, so I was waiting for that. All right, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, my NACO meeting started at 11, so I'm going to be brief, but I think it's kind of important and relevant as we talk about what we're going to work on in 2020. And so one topic, I want to broach it by saying that Monday night I testified before Metro on the T2020 proposal, the recommendation. And I was kind, but I was to the point, at least on one project, and that is that we just simply can't afford to underfund the Sunrise project. Metro brought in 13,000 acres into Clackamas County for growth, for housing, and here we are with a housing crisis. Still no road out there, still no gateway out there, and that we just simply can't afford to underfund it. Happy to expand about that when we have a greater discussion. But as I was leaving, I was approached by the mayor of Tigard. And I think I raised here, I'm not sure if it was on the dais or at another meeting, but the mayor of Tigard here a couple months ago stood his ground. He stood his ground because what was being proposed by Metro in Portland was that they would actually shut down permanently one lane of Barber Boulevard. And, he did what he was supposed to do. He was representing his community. He was standing up for what was in the best interest of the community, and he pushed back. But you know what? He wasn't, it wasn't mean about it. It wasn't a jerk about it, but he was to the point. He was doing his job, and his council got behind him, and therefore they were successful in not having a lane taken away. Well, when you look at this T2020 proposal, there are a lot of projects in other jurisdictions that Metro doesn't own, and yet they're putting this on there. So I think having funding to do things is great, but if the projects don't reflect what's in the best interest per se, or the greatest need of a particular jurisdiction, I think that we need to stand up and speak up. Middle of December, we had the last meeting. I attended the last meeting. Jim was sitting at the table. Commissioner Bernard was sitting at the table, and we got partial funding, approximately just a bit over a third of the Sunrise Corridor, approved by the group. And Commissioner Bernard did make the motion for full funding, which didn't get adequate votes, and I don't know what Metro is going to do. But after the meeting out of this morning and recent meetings, not only do I think we're not getting our fair share there, but I have another concern, and that concern is that the amount of money or the spread or the share or the formula on this carbon tax measure that's going before the legislature in just a month or so, and that is the formula distribution. And the formula distribution, I thought that we were going to get a 50-30-20 split like we do with every gas tax dollar. So what that means is that for every dollar we get, 50 cents goes to the state, 30% goes to the county, 20% goes to the cities. And that's what we assume we were going to get. Well, actually, that's not what we're getting. What we're getting is we're getting a cut of a cut of a cut, okay? And unbeknownst to me, Metro is going to get, and I don't know, and I need help. And I think that the fact that we haven't discussed this as a commission begs the question that we ought to be more involved to find out what the legislation says so we know how we're impacted. But it gives Metro a cut off the top of every carbon tax dollar auction, as they call it. And then we get another portion, well, then we get our portion, which the state takes their cut. And then what's left over, we get our 50-30-20. I could be wrong about that, but it's not clear to me. But are we going to support that? What's even worse, what's even more troubling, is the fact that how those dollars are spent, whether it's the Metro share or it's our 30%, we don't even have control over that. Metro will have control over their percentage, and they'll have the control over our percentage, whatever we get. And how they justify that is they justify that by saying, well, because they have a climate smart action plan, which is recognized by the state. And back when the climate smart strategy was discussed and approved at Metro, we had a different position because we're unique. We're not a metropolitan grid structure. We don't have all those assets. That model didn't fit for us. And we need to be in federal compliance. I get that. So with that in mind, I came back and reported back that, and I reported to Metro as well, that we are going to take our own steps to having our own federal required action plan, climate action plan, to be in compliance, but yet do it in a way that fits what we have. So here and our staff took some of that, and I think whether it was leadership or whatnot, but that got lost, and now we're trying to put that back on track. But the fact that we're behind, we may not be eligible for some of these dollars as far as determine how or where those are distributed, how they're done. But I keep on getting this sense that there's these big sucking sounds, whether it's, I know when the CRC was on the table, we knew that was going to gobble up all the transportation dollars. Now that's back on the table. And I just got out of the presentation with JPAC this morning, and again, that's why it's relevant. And now the idea of tunneling another line underground, that's going to be a large sucking sound. The way that this is all being justified does not bode well for our county. It does not bode well for our means, and I keep on raising that. Mayor Knapp he joined in this morning. I want to thank him and recognize that he made a very relevant comment, similar to what I've been making, but we're doing it in a very professional way. And I just want to let you all know that I'm trying to advocate and trying to be an advocate for the commission, an advocate for the county, and do so in a way that we're still, we have a good decorum, we have a good relationship with our partners. And our partners were chiming in with agreement this morning. So I just want to let you know that despite a few flare-ups, which Clackamas County hasn't been in at JPAC recently, there's a little bit of war breaking out sometimes. Things are getting better, but we're not in that fray, so I'm proud to say. And I just want to just acknowledge that we need to sit down and talk about quickly, because this legislation is before us, that is this what we want to do as far as our position on this bill that's coming up? Let alone, I don't know, maybe Jim, when in your comments you could share what happened last night as far as the T2020 funding discussion. I'd like to get up to speed on that.
Yeah, I would too. We do have a strategy meeting. We need to get to Salem, so maybe we'll put that down in issues next week.
I do have a quick question. I know that what they're dealing with right now is what they call a legislative concept. We don't actually have a piece of legislation. Do you have any idea, because I know transportation is what you focus so much on, do you know when that will come forward so we actually have something to look at?
Well, I'm not sure that, I think there's something to look at now, but that's being generated in Salem.
Okay.
And I think Chris or whatever, our staff, Metro has taken it upon themselves somewhat. JPAC wasn't involved in the lobbying position for this, but they seem to be doing it on behalf of the MPO. But the MPO is JPAC, it's not the Metro Council, or should be in concert with, honestly. But we have been part of that. So they set a legislative agenda, they set their priorities, but we're not adequately involved. So this is, I just learned of it this week.
Okay.
And that's why I'm kind of surprised. So let's get that on the agenda. I need to go to my NACO conference call.
So can we wait, just at least allow me to do it? Otherwise, oh no, there's three of us. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I forgot. All right, I did testify in support of the Happy Valley and NCPRD legislative concept in Salem. We were well received. Did go to the Milwaukee Library grand opening. I was part of that project nearly 20 years ago, so it's nice to see it finally done. And I want to thank our legislative folks for the Clackamas County Caucus, where they meet and work together for Clackamas County, and we're working real hard on getting the money for I-205. And frankly, for the Sunrise. Last night at T2020, it's our 17th meeting, we talked about various concepts for raising money to pay for roads, and some of those things that we can't do for roads. One thing is the vehicle registration fee. Metro has the ability to charge 56. Same as us, 56, which we chose not to do. So we'll see what happens there, but it doesn't raise enough money. So they're looking at various other income taxes that could help pay for that. All that scares me. I'm also really concerned, but I would say there was pretty close to unanimous that property taxes wouldn't be one of those mechanisms.
That's good.
Because in my opinion, property tax is a part of the cause of homelessness and certainly the lack of affordability in the region. And so I didn't hear anyone support property taxes. So my guess is that's going to be off the table. The other is income taxes, an employee or employer payroll tax, but all that stuff we're going to work on. I could have skipped last night's meeting. It would have been a big loss. Now that Clackamas County is on the list, I don't necessarily agree with all the way the funds have been appropriated. Should the measure pass, McLaughlin I think is really high at $285 million. And the Sunrise is too low at $180 million. We could shift some money in some of those categories over to I-205, to the Sunrise, and probably get a better project. But it's not, I had to fight to get anything for the Sunrise. We started at 0.
Yeah.
We ended up at 130, and then we fought the last meeting for 180. We got 180. But when there's a large contingency there that says no more roads, which doesn't work in Clackamas County, we need roads because we don't have a grid system. We're not Portland. We have 1,400 miles of roads. It's a big challenge, but we got a good distance there, money that we would not have gotten ever. All right, with that, I'm gonna, Ken and I need to go. You and I do strategy.
Do we have to do strategy?
A very quick meeting, yes.
A very quick one.
Okay, good.
All right, and with that, we're adjourned.